And we're good.
Great. Well, let's see. It's 6:03 p.m. and I call the June 5th meeting of the Equity Board to order. I was trying to think about whether it was a special meeting or not. I don't think it's special.
Regular meeting.
It's a regular meeting. And let's see. So Dale, can I ask your assistance for the roll call?
Absolutely. We'll start with the folks. Oh, there she is. Okay. I was like, how much can I vamp before the top of the alphabet is here? We'll just do Lorna last as we go. Varnika Doka is not here, but is meant to be here, currently marked absent. Shani Kapoor.
Aye.
Ray Manahan.
Here.
Leslie Millender Irwin.
Here.
Krithi Modi Pan.
Here.
Kelly Munn.
Here.
Kunal Srivastava.
Here.
Christina Abonce has an excused absence. Tony Curry. Not currently here, but expected to be here, but currently marked absent. Shay Fleming has an excused absence, and Karthik Kashinath has an excused absence. Lorna Gilmore.
Here.
Excellent. We have quorum and we're set to go for this evening.
Great. Okay, so next up on the agenda is public comments. And so I see the Council President Walsh in the room. And I don't think there's anyone else in the Teams meeting. So Council President Walsh, I invite you to give public comment.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I am just coming down. We as council really rely on the advice and the time that the boards put in. And so we always try and visit as many of them as we can, especially after new members start to come on. So I really just wanted to stop by, and as someone who started out on a board, I was on the planning policy board for 2 years. I really understand how much work it is for absolutely no pay, very little recognition. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for putting in the time, doing the work, being really involved in this area in particular. It's lovely seeing how you guys are developing your work here on something that's so new, and recognizing that it's so nice as a community to be able to give this to you guys and say, we really care about this, and we really want to know, how do you want to see us make changes? You know, I love seeing the ideas come out as you pull together and you're like, well, we feel like the staffing model and hiring could be improved in this area. And so I guess I'm just in awe of the work that you guys are doing, and the fact that you've been involved and are pushing us on this. I encourage you to do more on that. And so toward that idea, I would say you have a big, important idea. Obviously, Dale is going to bring stuff back up to the council, but I would encourage you guys to write a letter. If there is something that is strongly coming through. I would also say your comments as individuals matter, and the little secret that I like to tell community members is that we're a town of about 40,000 people. City council gets maybe 5 emails a week. Yeah. And so if you want to have a large impact, more than voting, the thing that you can do is write to us and tell us about what your concerns, what your issues are, things that you notice around town. It's a really impactful way to be able to say, hey, we noticed this issue. We had a high schooler who emailed us fairly recently and said, hey, I'm trying to drive down from the Highlands and the light poles aren't lit up. And I find that to be a really difficult area. And I think for the safety of our community, you should address that. And I went to staff and I said, who do we talk to about that? They're like, oh, that's easy. We just put in a request with Puget Sound Energy, and they came out a week later and redid the lights. So not everything is as quick and easy to handle as something like that, but it just goes to show how much a voice matters in that area. And so we always look forward to everything that you guys pull through as the board and commission, but also I encourage you to get involved individually. So just want to stop by, say thank you for all your work, let you know we're paying attention to it, and we love what you do. Yeah, indeed. I'm gonna let you guys do your work. I'm gonna go pick up my kids at the garage. So. It's perfect timing on everything.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you guys.
Okay, so moving on to the approval of minutes, I'll give you all maybe a minute to refresh on the document in your packet. Okay, and then when someone is ready, we could get a motion to approve.
I had just a small brief comment.
After we make a motion to approve,
Okay.
we'll then have discussion, so. You could make a motion to approve and someone could second it,
I make a motion to approve.
right?
I second. We have a second. Great. I love that our new members are approving and seconding. All right, Shawnee, what is your comments?
So in the part that you mentioned, can you hear me? Yeah, in the part that you mentioned, hold on, it's my screen closed, but oh boy. Can I come back to it? I'm so sorry, my computer's kind of acting weird and that page just vanished.
You're good.
Is there
Always happens. Okay, finally worked it out. So the part where you say that the board recommended that a section for words and phrases to avoid should be added to the glossary, that part I was thinking if you could just put an example over there. For example, we talked about the word stakeholders, you know, so just kind of add a couple of examples that we discussed there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
any other comments or requests for revisions? All right, so I think we can consider the minutes approved with Shawnee's suggested change. Great. Okay, so now we're on to the opening question. And so for folks who got here a little early, they had a preview of the question. So the question for today is, how do you prefer to start your day? And whoever goes first, just let me know and then call on someone to go next.
Oh.
I'll go first.
There you go.
So it's three things that I do practically every day, which is I focus on what I want to accomplish with intention, whatever that is for the day. And then I kind of think about what that looks like in my head, and I'm thinking it's going to be a good outcome. And then the third thing that I do is that if they're not already up, I wake up my family, or I go and I say, hey, I love you, and deliver hugs and kisses. So try and do that every day.
So feel free to call on someone else. I know we don't have name tags up, but do your best.
I am very much a morning person, coming from 24 years of being a teacher. Probably I'm wide awake and ready to go by 7:05 for my first meeting. And so recently, the past 6 months, I started waking up and getting on the treadmill. Half the time I'm half asleep, but luckily I keep my socks and shoes there. But that's the first thing I do. And then as soon as I'm done with my workout, I go down and give my kids a hug and kiss and spend some time with them and send them off to school before I get ready for the day and start my day. So that's what I do in the morning. And I think you're
I'm Hasanti. Yeah.
Hasanti.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Hasanti.
Nice to meet you too.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. I am not a morning person, admittedly. So my morning is immediate water on my face to wake me up, and then a cup of coffee, and then I can get the day going. But yeah, if I could choose to sleep all day, I might someday. But yeah, the coffee and the water definitely gets me out of bed, and then I can get going. I wish I were a morning person. Occasionally on vacation, I'll do the early morning and get out and feel the cool air, and it feels so great. I'm like, oh, I could do this my whole life. And then the next day, it just doesn't happen. So yeah, one day. And I will pass it actually over to Kamal.
All right, so I am also not a morning person, but I kind of force myself to wake up early and then before school, either get a quick workout in or go run in my neighborhood. And then I get back, take a cold shower, and then make breakfast.
Love it.
Do you like to go?
I'll go next. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I usually will just stay in bed. I'll pray. I'll pray first. I figure that centers my steps and guides my steps throughout the day. It really does for me. And then when I get out of bed, the first thing I'll do is I'll do some type of workout, something like whether maybe it's not workout, like an exercise. I read something years ago by two very not famous scientists who actually did some things for us in the military that was taught that you could get rid of, I mean, some people need of course, we're all different. So some people need medication to, for PTSD issues or depression or anxiety. But what I found in that research is that 2 minutes of exercise before you do something that's mind related, it increases what's called brain plasticity, your ability to absorb information, to relate information. Just 2 minutes of whatever that favorite exercise is, just do that before you have to do something. So because I work from home, what I'll typically do, I'll do something, whether it be push-ups, jumping jacks, something like that for 2 minutes. Then I'll just dive into my desk and just start working. And I just find that just makes my day just smooth. Right.
Well, perfect, because I'm going to piggyback on you. I did my workout too in the morning. It's not like maybe 15, 20 minutes of, I wouldn't call it yoga. It's just stretching and getting myself together because I save my workouts in the afternoon after work. But it's something to center myself. As soon as my daughter gets out the door, and I go to my office or give myself 10 minutes to just stretch. I just really do a lot of stretching. Yes. Dale, give it to you.
Yeah, the question is prefer. So I was like, ooh, is it how I do this or how I prefer? But I will agree, I both do this and I think I prefer my day this way to start with. It's becoming a thing, exercise. Last fall, when my mother turned 65, I asked her, what's your advice for a younger you? What do you wish you had known in your 30s? And she said, I wish I had started strength training in my 30s because my flexibility and my balance at age 65 is not what I wish it were. So I started seeing a trainer in the fall and have been going to see her 3 times a week since last August. And that has been like just a revolutionary way, I feel like, to change my whole day. The neuroplasticity piece, I'm like, oh yeah. And then also by this time of the day when I lack the neuroplasticity because I've been sitting or standing inside. But I think both that exercise and then the other thing that I really prefer, dog walk and a cup of coffee at the same time. If I can get my day is better if I am able to get a full 30-minute walk with my dog in the morning. I feel better about who I am as a dog owner. I'm sure if Shay were here, she'd be like, yes, we need more than that 30 minutes. But if he gets at least that 30 minutes in the morning, I can be at peace with being here until 8:30 tonight. So yeah, those are the 2 things for me. Shani, what about you? Oh, unmute.
Yeah, my response is pretty much similar too, in the sense that what I actually do versus what I would prefer to do. It starts by pushing the snooze button at least 3 times. But I still have to wake up early because of school. Then it's me and my spouse, we talk for 10-15 minutes the whole day, charting all of that out and figuring things. And then it's mild 5 minutes of stretching just to, release all the tension and everything. And then it's just go, get the kids ready, get the breakfast ready, and I leave by 6:40. So it's pretty, yeah. So I wake up pretty early, so it's a go. But on weekends, we just got our backyard done. So on a beautiful day, it's always a pleasure to just sit there and kind of enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet and mindfulness thinking. Yes. Thank you.
Shani probably can't see well, so.
Kelly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Being a retired person with no real time frames, I get up, I get up way earlier than I used to. Because I don't have to fight it, right? So I get up probably at 6. Here's what I really do. What I really do is I get up because my cat's meowing and I feed the cats and then I let them outside. That is literally the first thing I do. And then I make tea and I sit down and I read probably for an hour. And then from there, I do my normal day, which includes really pretty much the same thing. I do my Spanish and Duolingo. I do some game puzzles. I work out at least 45 minutes doing yoga and then something else every day. So I do 2 things because I can. And then volunteering work and seeing my friends. That is my life. Literally, it is fabulous. No, don't be afraid of retirement.
Kelly's really selling retirement tonight, I gotta say.
Except for the 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's part. Because I flipped, I used to dread getting up because I had to go to work and now it's.
Now you're just.
Yeah. Clock changed.
Well, I guess I'll close this out. And so I'm the last one up in the morning, so everyone else is gone by the time I get up. But my preferred thing is to get a cup of coffee and sit outside in the sunshine, but that is so limiting in the Pacific Northwest.
Next 5 days.
I know, yeah, so I will be doing that for the next 5 days. But otherwise, it's like make the bed, do a couple of puzzles, and then, roll over to my desk because I work remotely and then get my work day started. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all for the playing along. Let's see. Okay, so now we're on to the staff report, Dale.
Yep. I have just a quick update. So as a reminder, we've added this section into our meeting for this year as a way to keep track of the impact that the equity board is having on an ongoing basis. One of our reflections at the end of last year was, as we looked back, was just knowing where the input, where the feedback, where did it go? We didn't necessarily always see things come back to the board. Yeah. And so one of the practices this is a good preview for you. I'll be following up with you after this meeting. One of the practices we've instituted since then is this practice of the following month getting an update on, based on how we spent our time last month, the feedback we gave last month, what's happened since then. I have a fresh report. It's not even written because it literally happened this afternoon. Our DEI glossary subcommittee, our team within the internal equity team, is working on that resource that you all gave feedback on last month. We've met now again twice and have worked on 2 main things. One, taking the recommended list of additional potential words and going and sourcing definitions. Categorizing them into the categories that we already had in the tool, and then also finding additional affiliated and/or related words. So sort of building that out. The next step will be to determine which of those, the internal equity team, which of those words they'd like to see in the 1.0 version of this glossary, or are there some that we're just like, that's a great suggestion, that's not necessarily one we're going to move forward with. And so that process, and then also building on the feedback Shani gave, specifically the section around an additional section there on words and phrases to avoid. So you provided I think 3 or 4 in the meeting. The the subcommittee went and did some additional research, and I think right now we have, I think 10 words or phrases to avoid in that section. And that section, the way it looks right now is the word, its historical context, the harm that it potentially causes and why we should avoid it, and what are alternative words or phrases to use, or should you just not even be using anything related to that word or phrase and why. And so that is currently moved forward from draft phase to now finalizing smoothing phase, and it will go back to the internal equity team July 15th before it comes back to this group for our September 4th meeting. That's not the day, except the first Wednesday in September, whatever that day is, it'll come back to this group for final review and approval of sort of the 1.0 version of the glossary. So lots of the feedback was very helpful and drove a lot of really great conversation at subcommittee, and I'm sure will drive great conversation in the full equity team. That is the update from our May meeting.
All right, so next agenda item is the Parks Plan updates. We have Hasanthi here today. Thank you for joining us to share. I believe there's a presentation in the board packet as well. Any words of introduction or?
No, we're excited to have another member of our Parks and Community Services team here to share about, we've engaged with that team on recreation, but this is a totally, related but different part of the work that Parks and Community Services does, which is around the physical locations across our city, both parks and open space that we maintain, and think about both the current way that those spaces are used and what the future might look like. It's not just about making sure our parks look great now, but it's thinking about what access to the natural environment do we have long term. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Hasanthi Hoagland. It's really nice to meet you all. I'm the Department Operations Specialist for the Parks and Community Services Department. And so I'm here to talk to you all about our Park Strategic Plan, our Park System Plan update. Sorry, we changed the name from the last one, and I'm just going to get my screens up here to share presentation. And please feel free to stop me throughout the presentation if you have questions, clarification. I'm happy to answer as much as I can. And hope that this is a informational update, but also that there's time for you all to give us any other feedback that you might have that we may not have heard already. This plan has been going on for almost a year now. So we're like close to the end of this park system plan, but by no means is it actually an end. These documents really do get used. And sorry. We're just going to go through a little bit of sort of the project background, what this park system plan really is, what it isn't, some of the community engagement that we've done already throughout this engagement. Said that too many times, and just the vision, goals, and policies that came out of all of our sort of community touch points, as well as debut a system concept that has come out of our community engagement. Something that we're starting with calling Issaquah's Creeks to Peace Park System. We're going to talk about that a little bit more a little bit later, and there will be opportunity to give us feedback on that. So for the project background, just a little bit about what a park system plan is and what it isn't. It's a long-range planning tool to determine some service gaps and identify opportunities for improvement for our parks, trails, and open spaces. So like Dale mentioned, this is specifically for our physical spaces, not our facilities or our programming, but our parks and open spaces, including our trails as well. It's a visionary document that sets values and goals for the city. And it's an opportunity for staff and the public to weigh in on the future of our park system. These are 20-year vision documents. So it really is a long-term vision of what do these parks and open spaces and trails need to be for the future? What does our community want it to be for the future? As well as an document that gets updated every 6 years. So the last time this was done, it was 2018. We're now in 2024 and hoping to be able to adopt a plan. Some things have changed, some things have stayed the same, but that is true and a reflection of our community. Things have changed. And so the needs for this park system needs to be able to change with that. So that's why we do these 6-year increments for it. It is not an operations model or a financial budget. There's not a method to approve capital expenditures in this. That is totally separate. There's our capital improvement plan that is done every 6 years that takes, you know, some projects that may come out of these visionary documents, but this doesn't dictate specifically those items. And it's also not a detailed design proposal for a specific neighborhood or a park or a facility or an area. There might be ideas that come out of it for a specific park or area, but the like detailing of all of that doesn't come out of these plans. That happens for once the project is decided to be a project and council has approved there to be a budget. And then there's a whole nother opportunity for community engagement within the design process. And then a little bit on the project timeline. Again, I mentioned it's been almost a year, exactly. So we started this project in May of 2023, and through last summer and the end of the year, we hosted some focus groups. We did an online survey, and did a lot of data and inventory collection. We hired some new park staff, which is very exciting. We have a new park, that's this room actually, a new park planning and development manager, and a senior park planner were brought on board during this process. And so their eyes sort of seeing the system from a new perspective has been really helpful. And reviewing our park classifications, our goals and policies that are actually a part of the comprehensive plan that's being updated at the same time. So this is something that is exciting for this plan specifically, is those goals and policies and the comprehensive plan and our park system plan are actually going to match this year, which is a new exciting thing because in the past, the synchronization of those updates hasn't always been in tandem. And then in February and March, we had some workshops with internal teams, with our park operations team, our public works department, and our community planning and development team. Those are the pictures you're seeing here. We were in this room. We had a bunch of maps up and markers and dots and sort of looked at what does the future of our entire city look like and how can our park system help support some of those other visions of things that need to happen within our city. And we also had we have been working with a consultant team from Design Workshop is the name of the firm. They're based out of Colorado, but they have offices all over the place. Our team specifically is from Colorado, and they came out to visit in March and they were here in this room. They toured all of our parks and facilities and trails and really, you know, saw the system with their own eyes to be able to help us create this document. And then in April, we had a community meeting and did some more mapping interaction with the community to sort of see what are things that you want to have in our park system that you don't currently see. And so that information is actually now being sort of reviewed and information is getting pulled out. And we are close to our draft system plan. And so right now we are taking this out to our different boards and commissions. There will be some city council review. We'll be going to the Services, Safety and Parks Committee for the city council in the end of June and also July with a hopeful adoption later this summer for the full plan. And our hope is there will be an actual draft copy available for the public and the boards as well, boards and commissions to review in beginning of July. So just a little bit about some of the community engagement that we did specifically. We had some focus group meetings in the beginning of this that were topic specific. So we reached out to different organizations, individuals, community members that had focus on trails and open space. We talked to a few people about arts, culture, and history, and then had a focus group on athletic fields. And some of the key takeaways from those interactions were an enhanced collaboration between park staff and some of our other public entities. So the state parks, the Department of Natural Resources, as well as our tribal partnerships with the Snoqualmie tribe and the Muckleshoot tribe, and prioritizing a system-wide approach when it comes to our trails and open spaces. Our arts, culture, and history group really wanted to focus on partnering with schools and local groups to expand our arts and cultural programming, and designing parks and events that reflect Issaquah's diverse history and cultures, and not just the cultures that we often see reflected in the parks, but really going a little bit further. And for our athletic fields, a lot of the discussion surrounded sort of creating multi-use facilities that can accommodate a variety of recreation activities. You'll notice as we go through the plan, we focused a lot on the land that we have and the land of our parks specifically, and what we can do within the parkland and what we kind of can't. And something that has come up a lot is, the drainage, our field use, what is available year round versus only specific to seasons. A beautiful day like today is great for some of our parks. Last week, not so much. And so how can the future of those parks be reflected in some updates that might be needed in lighting, turf, bathrooms, drainage infrastructure? We also had a community survey that went out to the public, and we had 744 respondents, which feels really big for a municipal survey, honestly. But knowing that we had that large of a response rate, we also want to make note that this was by no means reflective of our entire community. I'll talk a little bit later about sort of the demographics that we got from this, and that definitely needs to be taken into consideration. But the responses were to 13 questions around sort of recreation trends and values of the current park system and program offerings, perceived condition and quality of our current system, how it's currently performing for our community, as well as recreation needs and a future focus. And so just a couple of highlights here from that survey were that protecting wildlife habitat and water resources were considered one of the most important environmental goals for this community. 62% of respondents were willing to walk or bike about a mile to a park trail or open space. 78% of respondents believed that parks and open spaces encourage people to spend time outdoors, and 87% of respondents believe that parks and open space can provide a place for people to maintain and improve their health and wellness and fitness. So we had some really good overall positive feedback from the survey with definite room for improvement. And again, our sample size was pretty large. We're able to do a lot with that data with our consultant team. But our demographics skewed, here and there. We had only about 25% of respondents were between the ages of 35 and 44, 18% between 45 and 54. So, within our working ages, we didn't have as many respondents as we would have hoped. But we also had, 27% that lived in Issaquah more than 20 years. So that's a lot of people that really know this city and know this area. Our top responding neighborhoods were Issaquah Highlands, Squawk Mountain, Old Town, and South Lake Sammamish. So there are neighborhoods in there that we didn't hear as much from. And we probably need to do a lot more to reach out to those individuals to see what our park system is providing them, or maybe it's doing okay for them and they didn't want to respond because they didn't have things to say. I doubt that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Does this include how many people live in single dwelling versus apartments?
We did have a question in there that asked household type, and it I don't have the results right in front of me, but I'm happy to share that information with the board specifically as a follow-up item.
I'd like to know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And were youth surveyed?
Youth were surveyed, we did. We actually specifically went to the garage and did a presentation and spoke with a couple of teens, which was fun. I went to the Issaquah Youth Advisory Board and spoke to some of our teens. But getting teens to fill out a survey, not an easy task. And we definitely did get a ton of survey responses specifically from teens, but we did try to engage them a lot. I know I asked you to send it out to a couple people. So yeah, that's sort of some of the community engagement that we had. And then we also did a mapping exercise. I'm not sure if you all saw this recently, but it was an interactive map where people could put pins specifically in areas around town that they wanted to see, you know, either an enhancement of nature, an enhancement of connections, meaning sort of trail connections, active recreation spaces. We got a lot of people asking for more pickleball spaces or more multi-use areas. And then arts, culture, and events. There were some ideas for band shells around town, which was kind of fun to see. And then the opportunity for what we call See, Click, Fix, which is if you see something that's like broken or needs attention, you can fill out a form and let us know, and our staff will go and take care of that. So we had about 197 pins, and the interaction allowed you to sort of thumbs up or thumbs down someone's suggestion and add comments as well. So our team is reviewing all of those right now. There were some new ideas that came out of it. A lot of it that we've heard before, which is always good to know that we're still staying on the right track. But it was a really fun sort of community engagement opportunity to really see where our parks are currently and what we want to be able to have in them. So with the community engagement, there are obviously gaps. And, you know, we did pretty targeted outreach to the people that we know, to the people that we often hear from. We used, you know, our newsletters, the city websites. We worked with some all of our partner organizations. We did outreach with our boards and commissions. And we went to a few in-person events. Like I mentioned, I went to the Issaquah Youth Advisory Board meeting. We went to the garage. We went to the farmers market one weekend. And we had some interactions down at the senior center as well. But there's lots of missing voices here. And there are definitely some gaps in our outreach. And I would be so grateful if you all have any feedback or recommendations that we might be able to take to bridge some of those gaps. We did offer the survey and the mapping exercise in 2 languages that was available in Spanish and Chinese, but that by no means is not, you know, everybody's language. Some of the items were available if you had translate on your like web browser to maybe do a little bit more. But that's definitely an area that I think we should be doing more in. But I'd be happy to hear if there are other ideas. You know, it's a really hard thing to do. How do you hear from the people that you don't hear from? Yeah.
So I have 2 ideas. One of them is, you may have already done this one actually. The circle, they have multiple circles of different languages. They have a Spanish circle, an Indian circle, a Russian circle with a lot of kids and parents there interacting. And so then you'll get information from parents as to what these young children, as they continue living in a community, might be needing.
Right.
The other one is, I know that sometimes when I'm in apartment complexes like the YW up in the Highlands or in Discovery Park or in Anthropology, there are basketball hoops and court area up in Tallis. Have you gone to those apartment complexes where the kids are outside playing, maybe with a table, and you're giving like a free keychain? People love freebies.
Yeah,
And, you know,
they
but
do.
city employees going, hey, and an informal surveys, because I know I am biased and I'm always thinking what kids might need and through a kid lens. And I'm wondering how to get the kids saying, this is what we are missing, this is what we are needing. Because I see kids playing there and I would love to see them in parks And I always wonder, do they have access to those parks? And what are they needing from those park spaces?
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion. We did not do specific apartment outreach, but that is something that the city has done occasionally with some community outreach. But I like your idea of just going to the courts and being out there
And sometimes our districts, some of our schools will go into apartment complexes, but they're principals, so these are people who we are trusting, so don't send random
Right.
strangers. But with official uniform looking, with a table, but we did popsicles, you know, especially in the summer, and so then you're getting engagement. And it's casual, and you're not saying, can you do a survey, but you're just asking questions and then secretly noting it down so that you get gathering data. Just to get some information from kids.
Yeah,
I just have something to add to that.
Yeah.
I think as a high schooler, it's much easier to have a conversation with someone about, about whatever, like the parks, and get their input than doing a survey. So, yeah, just it's much, at least for me, it's much easier to speak to other people about my own experiences than to type it up on online.
yeah, totally.
I see Shawnee has her hand up.
Yeah. So just curious, the first part is I have two comments. First is I'm curious, like you said, Issaquah Highlands, you got a good response from them. So I was wondering if there was anything additional that was done with that neighborhood, number one. And number two is especially with youth, I don't know if we can think of like a quick social media kind of a thing with them. A briefer form, maybe not a huge one, but something using the social media, because that seems to work a lot.
Yeah.
Or even an open-ended question,
Yeah.
because they'll write one or two, maybe a sentence or two, but they're not, as you said, going to fill out a form. Because they're used to doing the feed, like responding to chats and messaging, right? Comments.
Fast feedback. For sure. Yeah, we did do some social media outreach. To your question about the neighborhoods, we didn't do anything specifically different in the Issaquah Highlands. However, we did have yard signs that we put out in our parks and trails and open spaces. And so those were sort of moved around the city a little bit. Because we already have parks in Issaquah Highlands, we have multiple parks. In the Issaquah Highlands, there's only one in Tallis, to make sort of a comparison there. We did have them within all of our parks here on the valley floor. But that's probably why we got a higher input from those neighborhoods, is because there were more signs in those areas. We did take a look halfway through the survey of what neighborhoods are we not hearing from? Who's not represented here? And we did some specific outreach on Nextdoor social media app to those neighborhoods, and reached out to some of those HOA presidents and organizations as well to say, like, hey, do you mind sending this out to your networks to get a little bit more feedback? And that actually helped. The Nextdoor specifically helped a lot. We also talked to our park board members specifically to send it out to their neighbors and friends. And so that helped, but we didn't do anything, I guess, more for certain neighborhoods other than the fact that there were more signs in one area because they already have more parks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know for parks usage, which communities or populations might be underutilizing it or not have access? Because I'm just thinking about the groups who you already know don't use it. And did you do any kind of focused attempt to get feedback from those groups?
Yeah. So I'll go through a little bit what our consulting team looked at in terms of sort of equity review for some groups that we maybe don't see a lot of use from, but we don't have specific metrics for our parks. There are a couple of newer technologies, I'll say, that are doing some of that work to look at, how many park users do you have? Where are they coming from in terms of like zip code access? but we don't have that currently for our parks. So it's hard to know, specifically who we're not seeing from. We do know, the areas that have specific, populations and whether there is equitable access to parks. So there are areas that we do have gaps, which we'll all talk about a little bit there. And we do need to do some more outreach in those areas.
I'm also thinking about folks who may have like mobility issues or like, physical disabilities that might prevent them from experiencing the parks, or like if there's things to be known from those groups that could help improve their access.
Yeah. We do have, within our department, our adaptive recreation coordinator who works with a lot of individuals with some of that. And so she definitely sent this out to people, and we have talked with those groups, but there's definitely more that we can and should be doing. And your example of reaching out to the circle, we did reach out through our boards and commissions, through the Human Services Commission, with some of the organizations that we work with through Hannah Roberts, but specifically going to one of their meetings might have also been a little bit more helpful. Sure. Thank you all for this feedback. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I just want to make some notes to make sure that I don't.
And I want to check with Shawnee. Do you have any more comments? I know your hand is still raised, so I just want to check.
I did not realize that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
So as I mentioned, through this engagement, we have sort of come up with some planned goals and visions and policies. And what really kept resonating with all of the feedback were sort of these 4 themes of vibrancy, being able to foster vibrant spaces that enhance social interactions, offer placemaking, history, culture, and recreation opportunities. Resiliency, creating spaces that are resilient, adaptable to climate change, preserve, protect, and enhance our natural resources. And balancing, maximizing our park system potential for the existing and future spaces, fostering partnerships to expand field and court opportunities, and then connectivity, increasing connectivity between our parks, trails, and open spaces to encourage equitable and safe walkable park system, but also connectivity to each other and that social aspect. So these 4 themes we've really tried to sort of weave into the entire plan document as we're looking at our entire system. And they came out of sort of these goals and policies as well that we reviewed last year through the park board. And so these are our 7 sort of goal areas that really came from this 2018 plan. So there was a smaller working group that looked at these specifically in 2019 from the park board, and really built them out for the entire system. And when we brought this back to the park board, they looked at those and felt like they still reflected the goals that the system really needed to meet, but asked for specific policy improvements and changes and updates in these areas that have the little blue aperture sort of focus on them. So we added a couple of more policies specifically in balancing our park system, in planning and design considerations, in environmental preservation, partnerships, and implementation. That doesn't mean that the other ones didn't change or don't need changing, but those were the areas that specifically we heard some more focus and specific policies that were needed within those. Yeah.
Would you mind going back 1 slide?
Sure.
Thank you. On the balanced park system, would you mind expanding upon that? It's a little bit fuzzy.
Yes. So it's being able to support an active and passive experiences within our park. So when you think of parks, active recreation, and this was new to me to learn as well, is really our fields, our court spaces, those areas that are really programmed. So when you think of like our athletic areas, versus our passive experiences are areas that are more susceptible for nature, that maybe have like a forest path trail going through them, but they don't have active recreation elements within them. So being able to offer both of those opportunities within a community park, potentially within a neighborhood park, which means just sort of the level of service that we're looking for that park specifically. And then also opportunities that sort of look at the diverse needs of our Issaquah residents. So, you know, one neighborhood park might be looking for something more specific than a different neighborhood park, and being sure that we're able to sort of balance that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. So some of the goals and policy updates that we did were adding some more information about how to foster economic development within the system, making sure to integrate the Native tribes into the planning and design of new projects, integrating artwork, educational, historical, and cultural elements into the design of new projects. And integrating both the heritage tree and the urban forest management plan within the environmental preservation goal, as well as developing metrics, to your point, Preeti, about being able to evaluate the progress of our system and be able to plan our projects. And then also integrating technology into the implementation goal. So looking at GIS measures that we can take, other things related to our level of service, who's visiting our parks, so that we know, you know, maybe this park is being really underutilized and we can actually look at why. So these were just a couple of the areas that the park board had specific feedback for some policy additions. And so those policy additions were then added to our policies that went through the comprehensive plan.
Question here.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I know that like we're heading into like wildfire season.
Yeah.
Is that, I couldn't see mention of that in these like goals and policies and stuff. Is there like a plan to kind of mitigate or help prevent our parks from being
Susceptible,
Yeah.
to wildfire, for sure. It is definitely something that has come up. The urban forest management plan is actually looking specifically at that and wildfire risk. There was some outreach done that within that plan that also really brought this to light. And our urban forest supervisor has been working with the city emergency management manager to talk through those options and sort of what can we do. We are a city surrounded by forest. And so it is a reality that we are going to need to face. And so both of those plans are sort of looking at that more specifically, less the park system plan, but it is something that has been integrated into sort of the environmental goals. Yeah. So I'll pause there actually if there are any other sort of questions or feedback related to anything that we've already covered. The next part is sort of looking at this larger vision that we're hoping to get more feedback on. But I just want to make space for any other questions. Yeah.
Do you think you can build a little bit more on the GIS for the technology group?
Yes, I can. So I don't know how familiar you are with GIS. I am not at all, I will say. But our city uses GIS. It's a mapping tool to sort of show the different layers of assets and things that we have within our city. So our current layers for our park system are not in their best shape. They're also not as accurate as they could be for today because they were done some years ago. And so part of this plan update specifically is to update those GIS layers. So we've been looking at making sure that our park boundaries are in there correctly, making sure that the park classifications are in there correctly. We've had some new parks that have come into the system that haven't been added there yet. So we need to do that work to sort of update that. Blackberry Park is an example. We inherited that from King County. We've done some work to renovate that. That park is now opened, and that information needs to be reflected in our GIS layers. Our park operations team also has been going through and doing a lot of asset management within our GIS layers. And so they've been going out and tagging, there's benches here, there's playground equipment here, there's basketball courts here, there's trash cans here, there's this many trash cans here, and what type of trash cans they are, to make sure that we know what we have and when we need to sort of life cycle improve those things.
Thousands of assets. And
Oh.
the team went and
Yes,
cataloged in the course of a couple of weeks.
yeah,
Incredible job.
yeah.
I'm sure they discovered things you didn't even know.
They did. We do. We have some old concrete trash cans that are getting an update pretty soon here. And yeah, so that sort of level of work is what we've been doing with GIS. Yeah.
Number 2 up there. Is that going to go beyond land use acknowledgements?
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, totally. So we actually have a couple of different connections with the tribes specifically. We have been in communication with the Snoqualmie tribe recently on all of our projects. They'll actually be reviewing the plan document, and we've been having conversations with them to bring them into this review process. There are, some tribes that want to be really involved in the process and others that don't, and so that's always an opportunity. But we have a really good relationship with the Snoqualmie tribe, so we've been having meetings with them. Our park planning staff have been meeting with them and talking to them about, the plans as they move forward. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay. I am going to go into our next concept, which we are calling creeks to peaks. And forgive me, the map is a little bit upside down from our consultants, but as we've been doing this plan review, we've been really looking at the land and the space that we have. And what has come up a lot more is our topography. We are a mountain town, really we are. And we have this sort of natural fabric of our creek corridors, our tree canopy, the topography, how our park systems and trails and open spaces layer into that. And then really looking at where our community is, the diversity and inclusion, the culture, the history, the values that exist within this whole system. And what we have wanted to do is, how do we bring this whole system view to the city and make it feel like it's all one system and not these separated parks and trails and spaces. And so what we have come up with is a couple of concept statements that are up here now, and I'll read them to you, and I'm hoping to see if either of them resonate with you a little bit more. So Issaquah's Creeks to Peaks Park System, a diverse system of parks, trails, and open spaces that unites the Issaquah community from the creeks along the valley floor through wooded hillsides to the peaks of the Issaquah Alps. So that's concept 1. And then concept 2 is a diverse park system of, there's a typo here, trails and a diverse system of parks, trails, and open spaces winding along our valley floor from our creeks through wooded hillsides and neighborhoods all the way to the peaks of the Issaquah Alps, fostering connections between people and the places they cherish. So this would really take something that started with the Central Issaquah Plan of the Green Necklace, which was meant to be this sort of interconnected system that had trails and parks that all could be walkable. and expands that out to be the entire system. So we have a really unique park system that really could all be connected, where you could start from one park and walk all the way to all of the other parks. And this vision would sort of put that into action to be able to make all of our parks connected. And so the reason we chose Creeks to Peaks is thinking about, you know, our creeks in our valley floor are really what grounds us. The valley floor is where most of our residents are and where our city starts. And moving out to the hillsides and the peaks of our surrounding forested areas that are actually, you know, mostly state-owned forests, and connecting to those areas. So that's where we came up with sort of the Creeks to Peaks. It's from our city outward. And we're hoping to be able to implement a vision that expands the green necklace to really be system-wide. So I'll pause there. If there are thoughts, feelings, love it, hate it.
I love what you said, but it doesn't exactly match that.
Okay.
So I almost wish that maybe what you said was recorded, because you mentioned a word.
Hey.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about that.
Thankfully.
Oh, there you go.
This meeting is
Because you mentioned the word connecting.
Mhm.
It's not there. It's
Okay.
alluded to, but isn't actually, as far as, unless I'm missing it, it doesn't say about it.
Guys, fostering connections.
Between people.
Okay, well, I just need to read that. Read the comprehension.
But I do think there's, you know, maybe more of that connection piece.
And maybe what I'm missing is there, not that you can read something and get the passion behind it.
Mhm.
But because I work in AI, it looks like that's written by AI.
Oh no, it wasn't.
It wasn't even drafted by.
There were people, no, we were
It wasn't
actually
actually
really
the
checking
ChatGPT.
for.
Let me see what the ChatGPT would say. Nothing?
You know, Creeks to Peaks did have some Chat GPT
Yeah,
influence for sure. Yes. Yeah,
I can almost see it.
yeah.
It's not bad.
No.
No, it's not bad. That's not bad. I mean, it should be bad. Yeah, it's a great thing. But it seems to lack the passion
Okay.
in the words. I'm not sure if you even care about that in the message.
I mean, we want people to resonate with this. We want this to be something that lives on. The green necklace really, I would say, our parks system has inherited it from the Central Issaquah plan. And so we wanted something that came from the community input specifically for parks. And so these words were actually pulled out of the survey responses specifically, and by our consulting team. And so that's where that came from. The way that we sort of put them all together was done through staff. But yeah, creeks and peaks and valley and nature, like all of those words were kind of pulled out of the survey specifically to be able to get to you. Yeah.
I have a question for my colleagues here first. I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to just confirm with me your answer. Can each one of you walk to a park without having to get in the car?
I can.
For the most
Yes,
part, you
I can.
Yes. You can.
Sort of,
I cannot.
yeah.
There's one sliver up there. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you pass Cougar Mountain Zoo, you're getting to the top. Stretch of 60th. I found a way to get down, but you have to like, my partner and we found a trail that connects us over to Talus, but it's not an organized trail. It's not
Yeah.
great.
I know what you're talking
Do you?
about. Yes, I do know what you're talking
Well,
about.
There's a population of us up there that have this conversation and say, that windy road past Cougar Mountain Zoo is not walkable. There's even thoughts of closing it down because it's kind of steep on your way up there. So my neighborhood that I used to live at in Seattle, we were right next to a park, so walking our dog every day, just getting out, exercise with our daughter. But having to get in our car annoys us sometimes.
Yeah.
How close park is. Think about that. If that was a restriction in your daily routine,
Yeah.
where you couldn't walk your dog, take a walk.
Yeah.
Correct.
I personally have it. I used to live in the Highlands next to a park and I loved it. I was out every single day. Now I moved, I don't have a park near me and I don't have one nearly. So yeah, no, I do. That connection actually from Cougar Mountain to Talus is a trail that we are working on. It is in the plans. Our park planning team does know it. But doing trail connections, it takes time and is a little hard, but it is definitely something that is on our mind. And we did do a walk shed analysis for our parks and trails to look at where people live and do they have access to the parks. And there are some definite gaps. So that'll be included in the plan document specifically that you all will see as well, that looks at those areas. And so that's a focus that our park planning team will be making. Yeah.
I think we want
So one of the things, I love the last part, fostering connections between people and places, but I think it needs to go up front. Because to me, what differentiates a park than natural areas or just wild lands is that it's a place for humans to interact with. At least it's designed. It's a very developed societal concept where humans are going into this open natural space and interacting with that space. And so that for the couple of those lines, winding along a valley floor, creeks through wooded hillsides, that has nothing to do with humans. I don't see people there. And it doesn't, that first sentence doesn't talk about humans doing all of that and interacting. So it doesn't put in the forefront that people are going to be interacting with nature. And this is for the residents or the people of Issaquah to do in nature, in community. So I would love to see the words like.
Well, they have people at the bottom.
Exactly though, but that's the whole problem. It's at the bottom. What I'm saying is people and community need to go up front, because for me, what I look at a park is I envision a park for us as a city of Issaquah to go and gather and build community. And very often I feel like that's not happening. You're talking about going to a park to walk your dog. I would like to see us go to a park, a whole bunch of other families are there on the picnicking, talking, walking around, but all of us are interacting, being in community. And that's also missing in our definition of what a park is in Issaquah. And so in looking at that, I'm like, oh, that's why, because there's no vision. It's more about appreciating nature versus the community of Issaquah out appreciating nature.
I want to build on that because I was sitting here unsettled by, I like the idea of, I mean, it's catchy. However, it's unsettling to read the first one because for me, creeks don't go up.
Yeah.
And that's because it's not about people. So it was bothering me, right? That it has to be peaks to creeks. Really, it was bothering me. But the reason it was bothering me is because of what you said. It's about the creek. It's not about the humans. That's the problem. So you hit it.
I will say this hits on that balance that you asked about, of the balance between parks and people and nature and our places. Issaquah is a place that has a plethora of open spaces that wants to protect and preserve our natural area as we should, and we're stewards of that. But being able to balance that with the people aspect and the active recreation and the community building is definitely something that we are looking to make sure that we're being able to do within our system. So, yeah.
My question got answered.
And I wonder, because like in United States, we have differentiated our national wildlife refuges, our national park system, our national forest system. So we have separated each part of our properties into how humans interact with those properties. And so in looking at Issaquah's properties, I wonder we could have some designations so that we recognize as we're utilizing them, that the main goal for these properties is as a national wildlife refuge versus a recreation area versus a park versus a national forest system. And so then everyone, like, as you're planning, you're knowing that this is really to remain untouched and preserved, that this is take out versus this is mainly designed for recreation versus this is a park system for humans to really interact and enjoy versus national park services, right? So using the model that the United States has in their spaces, their properties, and using that same designation as the city of Issaquah is creating and utilizing their properties.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And we do have that. That's part of the park classification sort of redo, I'll say, that we did within this park plan that I didn't present here, but that is something that we looked at of, our community parks, our nature parks, our neighborhood parks, our open spaces. We added another classification that's a greenway that is different than a linear park. And so what elements go in that specifically is sort of defined out of this has, this type of active recreation. This is more preserve and protect. These have elements that can, like our Rainier Trail right now is an example of a linear park. That is a trail system that actually has different recreational elements along it. So there is the dog park on one end, there's a forest path through, past the high school kind of. And then there's exercise equipment down by the senior center that's actually along the trail. So it has these sort of active recreation elements along it that would be totally different than a greenway. A greenway would be just sort of a trail system that goes through a green space. So we have been looking at that specifically as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Just, I reinforce, I do think the statement being a little more human-centered would strengthen it for me, because with that second statement, I resonated the most with the fostering connections between people and the places.
Thank you. I will take that feedback. We definitely are by no means done with this, and this is all super helpful to hear and see from someone that hasn't been mulling this over for months. For sure. I think that is all that I have for my presentation with you all, but thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm happy to be in touch with further feedback if there is more. As I mentioned, the draft plan will be ready in July, and so we'll make sure that you all get a copy of that. But if there's other feedback ahead of that, I'm literally just across the street.
In fact, our July meeting.
Oh, yes. There you go. I'll just stay late that day and you all can pop in and give me.
July 17th.
Oh.
One just last, I think, reflection that I had was, the troll was put in down the road. Like, I thought that was just, it was great, right? It drew people here. It got people out of their houses to like come here and walk, even however far it was down the trail to see it. There's that connection to the economy, because some folks walk down over to Front Street and grab a bite to eat. So that kind of model, I thought it's just a great idea. And, the more opportunities to do something like that would be just great for the community.
Yeah, thank you. I am going to give all of the kudos for that to Amy Dukes, our cultural arts manager, and the Arts Commission, who really made that project happen. That was something that was before my time with the city. Honestly, I think like a 5-year endeavor to get that troll here. And Amy really made that happen for the city of Issaquah. The Arts Commission had a really big hand in where that was placed within our park system as well, and working with both the artists and the Arts Commission, the Nordic Museum Art, the Snoqualmie tribe that were involved in it. Like, it really is, it was an example of all of the things that we want and hope for our park system. And so, yes, absolutely more of that for our system.
Thank you so much for presenting, and I think we all appreciated the opportunity to give, comments and feedback.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. Nice to see you all.
Amazing.
Right, so then on to the next agenda topic, which is chair and vice chair annual election. Is there a deal?
Yeah, absolutely. As promised, in May, we shared that we'd be doing this in June. I actually think this is a really great way that, it's kind of odd to welcome our new board members and then be like, vote today on who you'd like to have be your chair and vice chair. So moving it until having it be the following month, I hope also following our social time that we had last month, give you a little bit of time to get to know the folks in the room and the folks that couldn't be here tonight. So the way this will work is that it will be an open process. So if you are, the thing tonight is that all of our alternates are standing in for a regular member. So you all are acting as voting members this evening. So you can move to nominate for either position. How I'd like to structure our time is I would like to have our current chair and vice chair share a little bit about just their experience this past year and where they stand on wanting to be eligible to be nominated again. You can nominate yourself, you can nominate someone else, only regular members. So even though I would ask you probably not to nominate anyone not in the room as they're not able to give their consent. They picked a fortuitous time to not be here. Though I know Jay has shared with me that she is willing to put her hat in the ring. So, she said, I can't be there, but, and I hope, but I give my consent. But just so that it would be we should try to allow people to give their consent if we're going to nominate them. What we'll do is we'll do chair first. We'll do a round of voting for chair, and then we'll do a round of voting for vice chair. And I want to share one more time about the responsibilities of this role, because I think sometimes it can seem quite intimidating to be like, oh, I'm going to be the chair or the vice chair of a board or a commission. Not to minimize the importance of that role or the incredible work that these two have done and supporting me and supporting all of you over the course of the last, gosh, we're coming up on a year very soon. The main responsibilities are conducting our meeting, facilitating our agenda, and then when the chair is unable to be there, the vice chair stepping in and taking on that task. Meeting with me for usually about 30 minutes the week prior to the meeting to review the agenda, to remind me of the things I've forgotten to put in the agenda, as often happens, and say, oh, Dale, I think you may have forgotten a couple of items like the opening question and the closing thought. So working with me on the agenda formation, and then usually meeting for one longer meeting towards the end of the year to talk about the work plan. So really, and that meeting the week prior is an online meeting. It does not need to be in person. If you'd like it to be in person, it could be in person. But we meet briefly online to talk about the agenda, make sure everything is buttoned up and ready to go before the agenda is sent out to everyone. So there's just a general level of I get a second set of eyes to make sure that I've thought through everything. So those are the real, I would say, responsibilities that one would take on in a chair or vice chair role. Before I turn it over to the two of you to talk a little bit, is there anything that you would add about the role itself?
Rewarding. It's rewarding.
Yeah, you get a chance
It
to
really
learn.
is.
Yeah, you get a chance to learn a little bit about facilitating a board,
Mhm.
some of the parliamentary pieces.
Yes.
You learn a lot about yourself too. You really will. It's been rewarding.
Question, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't think you've missed hosting and you've
No.
never led one.
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah, I've never had to.
Tone it
Yeah,
down.
it's true. No. My job is to support you when it's needed. So I've never had to.
In that regard, if Tony was never in the meetings because you've been planning them together, so it's not required that the alternate be in the meeting if the main board lead is there.
But Tony is part of the planning meetings.
With
Yeah.
the two of them.
No,
So-
yeah, it's actually the three.
Oh, okay.
So that's also a vice chair
Yeah.
role to help with agenda creation.
Yeah. I'm even thinking
Good point, right?
especially, yeah.
I've only had to do it one time in 2 years. And that was one time when Shay was doing something. I think she was getting a car that day. And she got stuck in a car dealership. I've only had to do it one time. Yeah.
I'd love to have our current chair and vice chair share a little bit about their own interest and intentions and then open it up to the group, so.
Okay, so I'll go first. So one thing I wanted to know is, like, I felt last year when we had our new members come on board in May and then the elections, it felt very quick and sudden. So I am very committed to more of this type of process where we had met the new members, had a chance for everyone to get to know each other a little bit more before heading into this nomination process. So I am 100% on board because I think just makes it a better process. I have been honored to serve as chair over the past year. I was surprised to have been nominated last year, but definitely honored to serve. I'm not going to self-nominate this year. I would be, again, honored to continue to serve as chair, but I will not nominate myself. So I would leave it up to you to determine who you feel is kind of the right person for the board moving forward. But again, I would be honored to continue to serve if that's the case. And I would be fine to be a member if that's the case as well.
Preeti, it's been an honor to serve as your vice chair. And it's been an honor to serve on this board as vice chair of the equity board. I've done this since its inception. It's time for me to step down. It's time for me to give someone else a chance. There's some very capable members of this board that I think would be fantastic in this role, much better than I have been. And I'm sorry, Dale and Preeti, that I think since you've taken over, no, I need to say this because I have been so busy and consumed with my work that I have not been able to devote the time needed. And you're hearing me say this thinking well, it's a lot of time. It is really exactly what Dale said. It's just that I am so busy at my job that I don't have the time that I want to devote to this, to grow this, to be your supportive vice chair. And it was so sweet of you to say, it's so awesome of you to say, I'm sorry, Tony, I haven't given you a chance. That shows how great of a leader that you are, that you want to actually be able to develop leaders. That's the mark of a leader. And I think another mark of a leader is knowing when to give up leadership and put it in someone else's hands to grow. There's a particular person I want to nominate. I really do, but there's another person I want to nominate as well. So I'm just going to keep my mouth closed. But I think it's time for me to just step back as a member and just support the leadership that will make this happen. So I'm stepping down.
Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your leadership.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
Great being here. But remember, I'm not stepping out the door.
Yeah, no, Tony's gonna still be here
Yeah,
every
I'm still
meeting.
here.
Okay, so you have some general intentions from our current acting chair and vice chair. We still have, both positions are technically open, even though, and Preeti has shared, interested in continuing, but not going to self-nominate. So we'll open for discussion. So we'll start with chair. And then if you have a question.
No,
Great,
I was gonna make a nomination.
great, go for it.
I would like to nominate Preeti, and I want to say really clearly why. I think that the board this year, between you and Dale.
Forgot me?
I did.
Kelly.
I know, it's terrible.
That's okay.
There's some problems with it.
Shows how much I've been absent.
Tony.
Thank you. I got it. No, this is why the name tags. I'm feeling
No,
wrong.
It's like, what, 3 years now? 4 years?
4 years, it's terrible. Anyway, but I really think that the board I think that the listening to each other, the developing of relationships with each other has really been a factor of the work in the three of you's leadership. So I personally would like to see the continuity of that work, of really bringing us together and laughing more together and understanding and diving into harder stuff together. To continue.
Do I need a second?
You can second, but we can also.
Unless people are running, want to.
Yeah.
I'll second.
I agree as well. I think that the continuity and just I think the collaborative nature, your very smooth delivery, the seamless facilitation. I'm a general manager with a large scale community here in Issaquah. So I work in kind of assist boards. And so when someone takes to it naturally and it's great transitions within an agenda, I appreciate that because it's something that I do. So I absolutely second your nomination as well.
Second, we got a third and a fourth. Anyone object? I don't know, this is we'll do a all in favor aye, and any objections would be a nay, and any abstentions would be an abstention. So I'll call all in favor.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Great, with that, if you accept, chair for another year. Awesome. Vice chair,
I'd like to nominate someone.
excellent. Second.
Second.
Third. Fourth.
Ray was nominated.
Yes, Johnny.
For the record, I was.
I support.
I just have one comment.
Yes.
Before I take this on. We have been in existence for 2+ years, and I don't feel, we do a lot of listening as a group, and there's very little action. I'm going to share some of the actions that I've taken over the past couple of months, and those are examples of actions that I expect from my fellow board members.
Yeah.
So I take this role on, I'm going to be a little more vocal about saying, you need to come back next month and give us a report on what it is from an equity perspective you observed in our community that we can focus on, whether it be something that was shared with us at a previous meeting. Go out there and find out more information like I did with these 2 events. So I'm happy to take on the assistant position.
Yeah.
But know that I'm going to be a little more vocal with those things.
Okay, fair enough. I like that. It's just interjecting accountability and a participation at a higher level. So
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Yes. Questions for me about that comment?
Well, I hope that you are willing to also challenge us members to be more active,
Yes.
to get involved, whether it be, there's been some subcommittees that I've wanted and I've had in my head that we've talked about. I think, Maureen, you and I have talked about those things in the past. So challenge us. Support you.
Yeah, I can go to the challenge her and ask her about that trail she was talking about. To get me off that mountain with my dog instead of getting in my car.
I think I 100% agree because I feel like we are learning and evolving as a board. And I think this year, I definitely feel like we're being heard and things are being impacted. I think I'm still going back to how much of community voice we're also hearing. And I feel like that is still really missing. And I don't know, and what you're saying for them to come back or what you were saying for us to go. And I don't know if it's us who organizes or as attending, but how do we be part of that? Because I know in today's presentation, I very much resonated with it because I did a lot of the surveys that was sent out. And I wish I had been part of more listening sessions because when she said that she saw the word people, I'm wondering, did you hear, like, what was the frequency? Like, because it really, I think you recognized it that people wasn't centered. And so what does that mean? And how was the data collected? If it was a survey, and so how do we listen? Are we listening for understanding? So are we asking the right questions, or were those questions being asked? And so I'd like to see us do more. I just don't know how. Because I don't think that's the role that the city wants from us, the city council. I see it as being more of a sounding board. And that's what we've been kind of developed into.
Well, let's clarify that. I mean, is that what you understand the equity board to be?
I mean, I think we heard tonight directly from a council
Yes,
president
I would agree with
who
that.
said, push
Yeah.
us.
Mhm. Yeah.
She didn't share that the city council email address is citycouncil@issaquah.gov, but
Yeah. So I wrote that statistic down. I mean, 40,000 members and only 8 comments from the city to the city council
yeah,
members.
I'm on the listserv, so I get all of them. Yeah, it's probably about 5 a week, maybe.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah. And they read every single one and respond to every single one.
So I feel like we should close the.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
To answer the questions, yes.
Yeah.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Ray Manahan, all in favor of Ray for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any in abstention? Well, no one can vote abstentions. They're not- With that, vice chair for this upcoming 12 months.
Yay.
Chair and vice chair.
So just building off what Ray said, I mean, one immediate thing we could do is if we know when they're running meetings, public meetings, that someone lets us know. We're not gonna all be able to attend them all. We even shouldn't attend them all, but somebody can go to some of them, right?
I like that.
And that just know, because I'll notice them the day before, and that's too late. That's just the bottom line.
I can't propose anything for other business. I'm not a member of the business board, but I think that's a great thing that we should talk about here in other business. I also know that there's some other items. It did not make the agenda because the agenda had already been emailed out, but I know that Ray has some items to propose for other business.
And I have something too,
And
sure.
you have something as
Yeah.
well. Great. I think that's a great idea. I'll just say quickly as your liaison, it could be as simple as taking time in our agenda monthly to look at the upcoming month's city calendar. It's just on the website, it exists, but any public meeting, we can kind of look and strategize about being in those spaces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's worth it.
You have a thought?
Yeah, I'm really cold. Would you mind turning that?
Leslie seemed warm.
No, I was, and thank you for doing that, but I don't want you to freeze.
Sorry, I should have brought a jacket.
That's all it is.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
I ran warm, so when that air hit me, I'm like,
I get you. I've had those.
Okay, you should be good, going up. It's also 49% humid in here, if anyone. 49, I don't know why. But I'll turn it back over to you for.
Yeah, well, I guess I know we have the closing thought and then other business. I would propose,
Yeah,
if I can,
sure.
let's go to other business first. So I think Kelly and Ray.
Okay, I have 2 announcements to make. I'm really excited to share with the group. June is such a busy month, isn't it? I mean, we have high school, so much going on in the high school, getting ready for finals. But two things I wanted to share with you. June is also Pride Month, and the Garage does a wonderful job of coordinating events. So on June 15th, I think they've planned a community event here at the park. But afterwards, the Garage and they worked through the Human Services Division, so that's Monica and Hannah, and they wanted the equity board to take part in this. And so they reached out to me. And what's going to piggyback off of this park event that day on the 15th is a panel discussion that's going to occur at the Garage. And I took point in gathering the panelists that will be joining us. So I'm going to be driving the conversation. But we have 4 panelists from 4 wonderful organizations. One of them is Gen Pride, kind of the senior LGBTQ population there out in Seattle. Another one, I didn't know this organization existed. They're called Pride Across the Bridge. And they're based out of Redmond, so they pay attention to East Side LGBTQI community members. So they're going to be there. And we also have Lambert House, they're a participant from last year. They're kind of a very well-known organization also in Seattle. But I'm really excited about the 4th party, which is we have a parent from the school who is a parent of an LGBTQI individual. And we also have a member of Saga who's going to be at the event. So Saga is Sexuality and Gender Alliance Club, Saga, that's from the high school. So we have these 5 panelists, 6 panelists are going to be up there I gave them some tasks to do, which is give me some questions to ask you to make it a robust dialogue, allow for some Q&A. So just remember that's happening on the 15th, 4 o'clock, here at the garage, if you can make it. The other item, talking about Hannah and Monica, they chair the Human Services Commission. And I've been listening into, because I was curious specifically because of health-related topics. So having listened into a few of their meetings, they asked me to present on this topic. There was legislation that was released earlier this year on a federal level. So this is Centers for Medicare and Medicaid that I have been researching on. And they said, could you just really share that with this team? So it's the meeting that I'm going to be joining is June 18th. It's at 3 p.m. And the meeting is hosted by the Issaquah Nourishing Network community. You know all about it. Lorna participates in that. But there's a health-related topic that I'm going to surface, which is if a community-based organization is involved in the care of a patient who is seen by a Medicare provider. So think about that. For a minute. Medicare provider is basically any provider. If a community-based organization is part in that individual's care, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid have structured a new reimbursement format that community-based organization can actually receive some money. So you think about organizations like the Garage. You think about organizations like our food bank. You think of organizations like the homeless shelter. If they are partnering with a Medicare provider, they can actually get paid for the services that they provide. So this could be something that the city could be part of because we're connecting the community-based organization to the Medicare provider. So they now have an opportunity to perhaps get paid for the services they do. And having been in the medical field for many, many years, taking care of a patient is complex work. It's not just the people that are in the clinic, but they also have to outreach to nutritionists. They have to outreach to mental health providers. They have to outreach to a food bank. They have to outreach to shelters. So there's a whole team taking care of that patient. And that's where CMS landed with this is they understand that providers need to better partner with community-based organizations and how they created a reimbursement structure for it. So cool. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting. So that is on June 18th. At 3 p.m. You don't have the appointment, but all you do is send me an email and I'll forward it off.
That was great. I was just about to forward your email. And then I was like, oh, this is not linked to an appointment. But I'll forward it on
them because they like to know who's joining, but I think can. You've been on it longer than I have. What do you?
I've been, it's very informal, so you can, but you can invite, I would email Kim and just say in what capacity. I think the next one I'm going to be missing because I think I'm going to be out of town. But yeah, if other people, the Issaquah Nourishing Network in general, I know you've attended a couple of times, is an interesting place to hear what's going on in the community. And I do hear from lots of people in the community about what's going on. So that's where I get a lot of my responses to presentations is based on what people in the community say.
Yeah, and I vetted my topic with Hannah first, and then she had me meet with him to really see this. What's the equity lens of this, right? Well, it's making sure that people are treated in an equitable manner, and they're leveraging community-based resources like the shelter, like the food bank, like mental health clinicians in their care. So I think it's a really good topic from your perspective.
Yeah, awesome.
That's it. Any questions on any of those two topics? Hope you can make it if you're available.
Just a comment that I've been in the Zooms for like past events that you've facilitated panels for, and they are just excellent. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then Kelly, you had
Yeah, I wanted to follow up. Connie Marsh had sent us a email with a question, which I am not remembering the question either, but as to our just brief comment about only 6 comments going to the city council is because nobody gets dealt with. And so I think we should say something or have a discussion in this room at least about a question. It's just a follow-up thing. And when we have too many questions, we can worry about it then.
Can we have that as a regular agenda item? Because I never know how to address it.
Yeah.
And I was like, should I ask, are we addressing this? But in our future agendas, can we put a thing where we say public comment, like time for public comment, also time for discussion of public emails or
Yeah.
emails sent to the board?
Well, I think emails do count as public comment.
They do.
Yeah.
So maybe
that would
we need to
capture-
just remind the group that this email was sent in. How are we considering response?
Mhm.
Because usually we decided that if a person made a public comment, we didn't have to respond to the comment right away. We could defer to the next meeting.
Wait, I don't think we're supposed to, according to like the
Mhm.
board, the meeting rules.
You can propose adding an item of other business during a regular meeting. Based on what you hear in public comment, someone could propose, could we add an item to other business to talk about whatever the topic was? For a regular meeting, so any of our first Wednesday of the month meetings. However, if you wanted to proactively,
So would that, like, when Connie sent it, should one of us have responded to Priti or you saying, can we add this as a discussion point for our meeting? Okay.
Yeah.
So then can I say, can we add it to a discussion point for our July meeting?
yes, we can make it a topic because it would not be an other business topic. It can be a regular item for our July meeting is discussing the contents of that email. Yep.
So what I'm also hearing Lorna suggest is maybe we add it as a standing agenda topic.
That was the other thing that I thought I heard. you
Yes,
say.
I did.
So it doesn't have to be specific. We could just add, that ABC and
Yeah, let me ask Tisha about that to make sure that's totally within my little Robert's Rules book maybe has an answer on that, but I'll confirm. She literally gave me this tiny book to just travel with at this point, so, because I'm bad at this. So I'll confirm with her to make sure that's fine, but I will say it is not up to anyone here to respond directly to those emails that go to the Issaquah Equity Board. Council President Walsh responded to Connie's email directly to her. I think there is a bigger discussion to have because the question was about board and commission applications.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I got.
and equity.
And
And
that
of course,
there's
it's
equity.
equity.
And I haven't had a chance to talk to the mayor yet
Okay,
about it.
so
Yeah.
I think what I'm also wondering is like, how do we find out what the response was to better guide us? Because
Yep.
she's asking a question, and I'm just looking around going, now what? Like, how do I respond? And I'm curious to know the answer too, because I'm like, well, that's a very valid question. And so how can we also hear what that feedback to her question was to kind of close the loop for us? Because it feels like otherwise that we're not responding and ignoring and doing nothing. So
I see
that makes it.
that the equity board was not included on council president's response to Connie's email. So one thing is I will forward that email to you also. You have that ahead of our conversation in July.
Thank you.
As context, also by our July 17th. Yes, by the time over a month away, when we meet in July, the mayor is currently out of town on a family vacation and then is also going to visit our sister city and then is going back to Germany where she's on her family vacation. So she will be back soon and I will be able to get her thoughts on this also ahead of that time. So I'll come prepared to share as well.
Thank you.
I think the other point, so Connie's email was actually in my junk mail. So in the junk folder, and as you mentioned it, I realized I rescued it from the spam folder, but I didn't read it. So I don't even know what it's about. So yeah, I guess I maybe would suggest folks check their spam or junk mail filters for things like that.
But I think if Connie's sending it to us and then I don't know because I know when you send it, everything comes directly. So because 100% like you, normally my filter is very strong, so everything goes in junk. But because Connie has emailed us before, she's now a safe sender for me. So I'm wondering, just to help the new board members and me in the future from someone who is not Connie sending me email, if someone does send an email, can you just forward it and say, hey, where I'm going to add this to our public comment piece. And so that will make sure that we see it and recognize that we're going to talk about it, because now it's going to be on our agenda. So that way it'll pull it out automatically.
Absolutely. Yeah, anytime, I would say we have some residents who are really good about public comment to our shared email address, our Issaquah Equity Board email address. anytime you get something and you would like to add it to the agenda, if I've already sent out the agenda, let me know that you're planning to add it to other business. Ray did that this week with his announcements. He let me know ahead of time. If it's before the agenda, let your chair or vice chair know, and we can make sure it gets added to the agenda. But in general, I'll check with Tisha about whether or not we can add a standing item around discussion of public comment. That would be the workaround, which makes me think that we would have figured this out already. So I'm like, oh, it may not be allowed. But always in any case, and what I'll try to do is make sure that if something comes in and I did not notice that the council president's response had not included this group. So one, we'll make sure that always happens, and then two, we'll follow up in some way moving forward. Yeah. Great. Thank you for bringing that up.
And I see Shawnee has her hand
Yeah,
up.
it's a totally different question. Was I supposed to do something about any emails? Like, am I supposed to create an account or,
No,
okay.
you're good.
All right.
You're good at it. You're on the listserv.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Okay, and I guess I have one topic to also bring up. And that is like an update on that. So the mayor has a strategic plan update task force that I've been chairing. And so we're about, I think, 5 sessions out of 6 total. And we're headed toward a presentation with city council in July.
Yes.
And I can send those dates. My update is like, so equity is a guiding principle. It's named as a guiding principle in the plan, but it's really been a struggle to figure out how to embed it into the plan, goals, strategies, and actions. And so, and I feel like we keep running out of time to really tee it up adequately. So, so we're in, like, there's a couple more weeks before the last meeting. And I would, invite you all to look at it. And like Council President Walsh said, let's use our voices to see how we can interject it a little bit more into the plan.
Can we make that an item for our next meeting in which is our next meeting co-meeting with somebody else?
Not the next.
No, okay. So couldn't it be, can't we just say now that we'd like to have that as an item? That we come up with the ideas for a letter that goes to the council.
It will have gone to the council the day before, so it'll be fresh.
Yeah.
And the current plan is for the task force to present their recommendations for council to consider. And so it will be in flux through the end of the year. There will be time for this. So whether or not you want to make it an agenda item for literally the day after it goes to council,
Okay.
or if you want to wait, make an agenda item in September,
I got you.
that would also be fine.
Question, are we meeting on August 7th, which is 3 weeks later, or, sorry, did that get changed?
August is a recess month.
Okay.
So
So then after the 17th will be September 4th.
it'll be September 4th. Yep.
I would propose September 4th so we all can kind of look more closely at it and come with fresh ideas for that first week of September.
I have another question not related to this. I don't know if I missed it, but is there a Juneteenth activity in the city?
Yes.
And what will that be? Sorry, I know Tony and I have been involved in it the past couple of years, and I was like, wow, I haven't done anything. And now I don't know, I feel bad because I'm not involved.
Yes, event taking place at the senior center. I'm just looking up the details very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
While you're looking at update, I did copy on the email that council had reached out to me about accepting did that actually happen? Proclamation.
The proclamation was announced, but they are going to present it at the Juneteenth event.
Tony's accepting something for it?
I don't think so. I think there's a new, I think they're presenting it at the event.
Okay.
So I'm not 100, I'm not involved in the planning of the events. This is where Monica and Hannah's team, they still really lead our events, our community events citywide. But I think it was the sort of proclamations we would give them for the entire month at city council on the first council meeting of the month. But the we didn't want to just say it and not present it. And so I also think that this actually brought up a question of like, what's the point of a proclamation if we're not necessarily going and doing it at the events that they're happening at?
Exactly.
So I think that that is the current plan moving forward for this particular one, and is calling into question the approach to proclamations broadly.
Yeah.
So full context or full disclosure or transparency. Last Friday, it was last Friday. It was an invite to come to the council meeting to accept the proclamation Monday night. I'd already had plans, got work to do, stuff like that. So, yeah. I couldn't
Late
do it.
invitation, we get it.
Right, yeah,
Oops.
yeah, that's what it, yeah, I just won't say what
Are you still pulling this?
Yeah, I'll get the
Okay.
details and forward it out to the group.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Great. Any other business that folks want to bring up? All right, so we are on to our closing thoughts. I think I kind of like the way we've been ending, which is like, what is like a word, a feeling, a handful of words that summarize how you're feeling at the end of today's meeting.
Mhm.
You know, whoever wants to go first, and then call on someone else.
I can start.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, that's great.
Well, I won't say there's a specific word, but I feel like I've learned a lot of new things about a broad amount of topics. And like about the parks, I learned a lot of new ways that you can incorporate equity into something simple that I would thought was simple, such as making parks and making sure it's accessible to everybody. Yeah. Do you like to go?
Yeah, I just feel invigorated with our coming year, especially that strategic plan. I can't wait to lay eyes on it. I think that's a homework time for us to look at it and say, what feedback or input can you have in this?
I don't know if I said it last time, but I feel Westwood is hopeful because I'm really excited about Preeti and Ray and leadership next year. Loved you for the past 4 years, you know, we're buds. But I'm looking forward to ongoing work and seeing where the equity board, how it helps and impacts our community in a positive way.
You next? I would say I'm excited and also about the action and accountability that, as I received it, that Ray's comment was that we're going to be really focused and accountable in terms of deliverables, what we're going to do as an equity board. And we're going to all be tasked with being part of that. And so I'm excited about that. I'm a checkmark person. I want to be involved at a high level in order to say that we did this, it's connected to this, this is the outcome. So I'm excited for your leadership and your continued leadership. So, yeah. See you
All right.
next.
I'll say energized. I feel like this was just a great meeting to, you know, do some structured stuff and then just kind of riff and kind of everyone gets to share what they're thinking about so we can help kind of forge our path moving forward still. So yeah, I'm energized. Good deal.
Man, there's probably one word for it, but looking ahead. I'm just really, tonight's meeting has me thinking about all the stuff that I know this group wants to accomplish in the coming months. And so I'm just looking ahead and as your liaison, thinking about how we fit that into the agendas and the meetings we have between now and the future.
For me, I think it's at this point it is more absorbing and soaking. So trying to kind of understand how things are run and, you know, and wherever I can input. So do that, but more like soaking in and absorbing everything.
Love that.
And I really agree with everybody. I'm excited. I think we're invigorated. It's invigorating. I think that we're starting to sort things out as a group, right? Both relationally, relation to us, relation to the city. You know, this year has been more about the city, you know, coming and asking us for their guide, you know, to give some guidance. And so I'm excited about like now maybe we can start going and listening, right? And bring that back. So,
Mm.
you know, maybe in thinking it back, of course, we had to do it, right? These steps of building relationships before we could actually get much done.
I guess for me, it's galvanized. I feel totally galvanized. You know, I love, Ray, what you said, and love that you're willing to do another year, Preeti, on this. And so I just feel like, let's go. I just feel like, no, let's get this. Let's go for it. Let's get it. Yeah. So I feel really galvanized.
Everyone going?
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you all for the wonderful evening. And I guess our next meeting is scheduled for July 17th. It's a special meeting. And yeah, and with that, I adjourn the meeting at 7:58. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Amazing.